Hello. How is everybody doing? How's things? How's life? How's the universe? How has your week been? Let me just resize that a little bit. Go. Yes, hello. How is everybody doing? How's things? We should be live, and we are. Hello, Ish. If you're still here, you're still kicking. How's things? How has your week been? I've had a busy week. I've been doing a lot of development on the latency tool, and I've also been testing AIOs versus all-in-one water coolers. So I've been doing plenty. Busy, good by the sense of it. Yeah, mostly had a bit of a setback on Monday, but yeah, fine. I actually have a couple of I have multiple healthcare appointments next week, which is an absolute miracle. um, Hello, Simon. How you doing? How's things? So yeah. No, I've been busy. I got all of the cases in for the latency tool, and then I also got all of the PCBs, and I've done quite a lot. So I 3D printed these clear lenses, or semi-clear. So basically, this acts in the same way that an LED like cover does. It basically just transmits the light from back here, as you can see quite clearly, up to the top. So it actually looks pretty decent from this tiny little surface mount LED right there. This is essentially a finished board. I'm planning on. I've got a video that I've made. I think it's going out on Monday. That will talk all about this, what it's all roughly doing. But yeah, this is pretty much a finished unit. So yeah, unless developing means a load of bug hunting. Well, that is all the developing is anyway. So yes, but sort of no. I've been making all of the various tests work basically, which they now mostly do. So the DirectX test now works the same as it does on the response time tool. The mouse click test, which uses the microphone that I'm including with the kits, to listen for either mouse clicks or keyboard key presses, and then reports back. Doesn't need to use the light sensor, therefore doesn't need has a fixed time basically that you can subtract to make it as accurate as possible. And then what you call it? I've also got an audio test, so you stick the microphone in like your headphone ear cup or whatever, and then you press the button on the thing to start it, and it will use my custom made bong sound to trigger the sensor basically, and then it will tell you how long between those it telling the program to send that pulse and that pulse actually coming back. Hello, Watson, how you doing? How's things? And hello, Harry. How are you doing? Coffee at 8 p.m. I remember those days. Yeah. Although, if I'm not saying that everyone does, but a large number of the people who probably tune into the stream are also probably neurodivergent. And so if you are, especially if you have ADHD, coffee is not the same as, doesn't do the same thing that it does for neurotypical people. It calms you down and allows you to focus. Hello, Joe. How you doing? How's things? Stagnant Killer? I'm sorry that I mispronounced that. Hello, how you doing, man? How's things? Oh yeah, I'm definitely weird. Yeah, me too. It's brighter at 8 p.m. than it is any time during the day over here, unless it's sunny. Hasn't been that for a bit. Oh yeah, is it still sunny over there? It is currently, yeah. I am in the like the front side, as it were. Like the sun comes round, so I'm getting the full brunt of the evening sun. But yes, it is quite. It's not been too sunny today. It's been on and off. In fact, do you know what? I can look up my my solar usage. Oh, I got my other monitor pole, so I now have the ultrawide here, the vertical monitor there, and my standard ViewSonic 1440p 165 Hz IPS up there. Where is solar panel power? It's been okay. It definitely like sunny for a bit, not sunny at all, sunny for a bit, not sunny at all, on and off all day. I'm currently making just 67 watts, 62 watts right now. I'm generating about 4 kilowatt hours today. Hello, Commander Classified. How you doing? How's things? Hello, Chris. I really need to replace my 3TB games hard drive. 19, I assume that's gigabyte transfer. My SSD gonna take 1 hour and 25. Oof, that's bad. It's been rain, then hot rain over here for the last 2 weeks. The European weather has completely bypassed us in the UK. It has, yeah, which is quite nice. Heat wave here, 33 Celsius all week. Yikes, that's too hot for me. I think it's only been about 24 or so at peak. It was either today or yesterday. I think that was actually yesterday. Gonna re-download Euro Truck Sim at Gigabit. Fair. I've got like 4 terabyte to move off a hard drive array with a dead drive onto SSDs. I'm kind of concerned. Yeah, I'll see you in about 3 weeks. I mean, me copying my 20 or so terabytes worth of data to the offsite, even locally, over Gigabit, took... I mean, okay, it took like a week because the rsync was failing several times, but just straight transferring the files, that was a good day or two. Hard drives are clicking. Oh dear. Move that soon. Meanwhile, I built a 9 terabyte TrueNAS array on 11-year-old hard drives. Why? Oh dear. Today I worked on a 1991 Suburban and a 1993 Jetta. Fair. I think the Jetta would be more interesting to me just because, like, Suburbans, SUVs... In fact, actually, I got... When I went to... when MSI took me to the... what do you call it? AMD's offices in... Austin, Texas, where Gamers Nexus actually just took a tour. They picked us up from the hotel in what would have been, I don't know, 2016 or 2017 Suburbans, and like it's such a big car for so little like quality. It's kind of like getting an Ford. Which is funny because Ford is now dropping all of their base model cars and they're only selling the expensive ones, which seems like a weird choice. But yeah. Recently switched from an AIO to air cooling, and I'm not a believer of air cooling. What do you mean? And what coolers did you go from and to, and what CPU do you have? So I'd be interested, because for me, I mean, so I would be lying by omission by saying that I don't use AIOs. I do. My system does have an AIO in it. It's a 240mm Corsair one from a couple of years ago because it fit. And pretty much all of the test systems I use AIOs. So I'm well invested in this market, mostly because the companies have sent them to me, to review, so I haven't necessarily paid for them. But anyway, from a personal build perspective, if I was, buying or building a PC, unless it was for a friend or family, in which case I needed to ship it somewhere, which I have done a few times, air cooling is what I would generally prefer. In fact, actually, I can spoil the video, but the video that will actually probably be coming out tomorrow that I haven't finished yet is a air cooler versus water cooler comparison with a 17900X, which is exactly what you're using. And I'm using a 240mm AIO, which is fairly similar. It's a Corsair one, so Asetek, not Corsair, Asus one, which means it's an Asetek design, versus a Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4, which is somewhat similar to an NHD15. What was I going to do? I was going to look at the data. That was it. Where is it? There it is. This might take a minute because it's hardware info files and they're awful. Where's the temperature on AMD ones? So used to doing Intel chips. First time in about 20 years, not getting a new GPU, giving up on AAA, seems subpar now, mainly play indie and AA. I don't blame you. I really don't blame you. The indie game scene just seems to be so much more innovative and interesting. So I really, really can't blame you. Hey Zach, how you doing, man? How's things? Hello, Jonathan. Air cooling is much safer. I would agree. Air cooling is just more reliable. I would also agree. Wap says, having used several AIOs, stick with air cooling, great for small form factor though. I would agree. That's a long time. When I had a hard drive start to go bad, it took about 26 hours to rebuild the pool. And that was on 16 terabyte hard drives and a 6 pull array. Interesting. Rebuilding is a little bit different than just like copying stuff off of a broken drive though. But also that still takes a while. Ish says, I have a couple of AIOs, they seem to be not full of liquid. When I'm sure they were full, but not sure how much air is okay in the loop. So the biggest thing is how you mount it, because there will, air will leak in and the fluid will very slowly evaporate out. But the biggest thing is come on, brain. If you've mounted it so that the radiator, or at very least the barbs from the radiator, are above the pump, you can get away with quite a bit of air in the system before it starts to be a problem. And especially if it's mounted above, then you can really get away with quite a lot of room. On ASUS motherboards, if I change the BIOS setting in the AI tweaker tab, does it overrule anything I change in the advanced tab? Let me try and remember how ASUS BIOSes are laid out. Yes, I think is the answer. I think so. You can always check that though. Probably not the worst idea. Which one should I be changing the settings in? Assuming that they are all the same settings, I would assume that they would carry over. So in theory, either, because most of the BIOS controls are all basically the same thing. Gigabyte has a weird thing where they often have overlapping menu items where you can change something in one place, and it's the exact same setting, but it's on a different menu. So yeah, I would probably just check that they are the same settings. So make a change, save it and reset, re-enter the BIOS, and then check, or in theory it should auto-update anyway, so make a change in one, check if it's changed in the other. If it is the exact same list of settings and they do change at the same time, then it doesn't really matter. Unless you're changing the OC mode thing that ASUS sometimes do. It's been a while since I've used an ASUS BIOS, so take everything I say with a pinch of salt anyway. But yeah. I'm still trying to graph the air cooler versus AIO data to tell you how much of a difference there is. Is it worth replacing the 5600X with the 5800X 3D running 32 gig RAM and a 3080? What resolution are you running at the moment? Because that's one of the biggest differences, CPU versus GPU performance. 1440p. So I don't think there is as big of a difference. You are gaining 2 extra cores, obviously, so if you do anything other than just gaming, that might be of benefit to you. There is going to be a little bit of a difference, but generally speaking, 1080p is where you'll find the bigger deal. So I think as a general, I'd say it's probably not worth it. And it's not popped up yet, but when it will, keep in mind not all games will take advantage of the 3D cache, which is also worth pointing out. So, but also it is generally a faster chip anyway, so 6.5 doesn't. Like I said, at 1440p, I don't think it's that big of a difference, that big of a deal, and therefore not worth that upgrade, perhaps. Playing Microsoft Flight Simulator quite a bit. then it might be, because Flight Simulator is quite a CPU-bound game, if I remember rightly. So yeah. Probably best to check specific benchmarks. I've never had any of the X3D chips in. AMD has never graced me with them, sadly, so I'm not the best port of call for that. I'm only going to be relaying information that you can find publicly anyway, so best to check some specific reviews on that one. Currently re-downloading the game at 112 megabytes per second. The transfer was going at 6.7. Ouch. Drinking mocha, drinking beer. Nice. Does your Windows 10 24? Yes, it does. And the stickers falling over. Use a 7950X3D for VMs. It's fine. Nice for some. Did I miss any questions, by the way? Let me have a quick read. Don't think so. Motherboards with Gen 5 PCIe slots, when will we actually need it? Realistically, not for a fair while. We're still not really saturating the PCIe. I mean, we're not even saturating PCIe Gen 4 bandwidth. We are, I think, closing on, if not already, slightly saturating PCIe Gen 3 by 16 bandwidth, but it's not. You know, you need a 4090 to get anywhere close, and even then, it's still not that big a deal. SSDs are probably the one that might matter more first, but then we're also not increasing, you know, the data rates to download stuff, and the read speeds, even with direct storage, I still don't think it's going to be that big of a deal for loading times or performance. So yeah, I think quite a while yet before it actually matters. In fact, probably quite a while before we even see devices that support it directly. There are a couple of PCI Gen 5 SSDs, but they are, in the same way that we saw with Gen 4 SSDs, they're the sort of first wave. There's the here's what we can eke out of what is basically the current controller, but with the higher bandwidth capability of Gen 5, versus what Sabrent is currently working on, because I keep getting the press release emails, to say that their newest drive, the Rocket X5, I think it was, is going to hit 14 gigabytes per second in reads. Which is closer to the sort of full bandwidth of PCI Gen 5, but yeah, it's gonna be a while yet. Also, I had a look at that data for the comparison, which you'll see a full video tomorrow once I've finished it. It looks like there is a slight temperature difference between the AO and the air cooler. It's maybe about 5 degrees Celsius. The air cooler is about 5 degrees Celsius hotter. But it's not the throttling temperature, and the air cooler, if I remember rightly, scored higher in terms of Cinebench points after 30 minutes of runtime. And the other thing that I'm including in the video is what temperatures you get to at gaming, like when gaming, and performance, I suppose. And so I think that's going to be quite interesting. Hello, Agent B. How do you, man? but Gen 5 is one more better than Gen 4. Yes, that is the current trend of things. My auntie wants me to build her a PC to do work on. She's an architect, giving me £750 budget. What would you recommend using new-ish components? She will 3D render on it, most likely. Good question. I seem to remember that the Ryzen, like the 3D Vcache CPUs, weren't much better for the standard computation workloads, like rendering. So reliability is probably going to be the biggest thing, which is the main sticking point. GPU isn't that important, but some applications will have hardware acceleration, like GPU acceleration, which might help. But realistically, strong CPU, probably 32 gigs of RAM would be great. And my consideration would be if you can get something like a 3900X, that's 12 cores. It's realistically not that much slower than you know, more modern Ryzen chips for 3D rendering. And you should be able to get a pretty good deal on it. You can also use even a B450, technically even a B350 motherboard, to save a bit of cash there. The only potential problem is buying used stuff adds to the potential instability, which might be a problem, but yeah. I don't know what's the price on newer, like new chips, but not like 7,000. Can you still buy 100X? You can. It's £329. I mean, that might be possible. You might struggle to fit everything in for $750, but a 5900X, 32 gigs of cheap DDR4. In fact, I actually got I think I mentioned this last week. I got a 64 gig kit on the Prime Day sale to replace this 32 gig by 4. It's actually like AMD DIMM stuff, like AMD compatible. Doesn't really mean that much. It just meant that they actually validated it for AMD for once. But so yeah, that I got a 64 gig kit for £90 or something. So if you can get a 32 gig kit for 50 or something, that'd be great. But I can even tell you. Ooh, expensive on overclockers. Yeah, you might want to hunt around for the best deal on that one. But yeah, so probably something like a 5900X 3D, like GTX 1050 or 1650 or something for acceleration, and because you need a graphics adapter. 32 gigs of RAM, B3 or 450 motherboards, probably an M80X case and an M80X board, 500 or something, decent watt power supply. Might be tight, but you should be able to get there. You could use the stock cooler, or you could get, Hyper 212 or something. Actually, the 5900X doesn't come with a stock cooler, does it? So, get Hyper 212 or something. So yeah, I would say that. Would be nice if you could split PCI Gen 4, Gen 5 lanes into loads of Gen 3 and run NVMe arrays. AVB, Normie, Pleb, and Wendo done bit, but the RAID cards with PCIe cables seem a mishmash. Yeah. It would be really cool to have better bifurcation support on the boards. The layout on a modern motherboard, like the PCIe layout, is kind of wild. I don't know if you've ever looked at one of the motherboard manuals. Gigabyte is normally pretty good at including that layout chart, but you know, so for Ryzen you'll have the X4 linked to the chipset. You'll have the PCIe slots and any M.2 slots connected direct to the CPU. You might also have things like LAN or USB ports or SATA ports direct to the CPU, and then you'll have sparring off of the chipset, which basically just acts as a PCIe hub these days. You know, things like other LAN controllers, other USB ports, other SATA ports, other M.2s, and the smaller PCIe connections, all that sort of stuff all gets tagged on, and the chipsets act as basically just PCIe switches. So it would be nice if that could extend to add-in cards nicely. Some do support bifurcation, but it's kind of rare. Is there anyone on Windows 11 2023 H2 yet? No. I still use Windows 10 for my main PC, and I don't see myself switching until I absolutely have to. And I do use Windows 11 for some testing. Still use Windows 10 for some testing as well. But I haven't done any testing in a little while that would require Windows 11, so no. I got plenty of cases, SSDs, and hard drives, so I can use them. Yeah, fair. I don't have any that many cases lying around. They take up way too much space, and I already don't have enough space in here anyway. So yeah. I think they're rolling Windows 12 out on it. I swear we only just got Windows 11. Why? What? Windows 10 was meant to be the last operating system, man. I switched back to 10, 11 was laggy. Yeah. I'm not surprised. Although Asian B says that I've switched to 11 last month, it's fine. Yeah, fair. Plus the start menu on 11 is horrible, random programs appearing. That too. I'm sure that there's some form of classic start that you can use, like Windows 8. But, yeah. Anything exciting planned for that wheel? Yes, sort of. I do have a review that I've already filmed, and I'm sort of I haven't had the time to edit. I'm also holding it for another reason. It's a Mercedes A-Class. It didn't come from Mercedes, but yeah, that will come out at some point, hopefully somewhat soon. But things have picked up, especially with the latency tool, because I'm actually planning on launching this technically next week. When I say launching, I mean starting to take pre-orders for a limited run, sort of first beta tester batch, and lots of software work still to be done. But yeah, I'm working on that a lot. I've got quite a few various health appointments and things coming up, and health problems. So that is on the horizon for that one. And so therefore I haven't had the time to edit it, basically. 12 will be a lot better than 11. They're going back to 10 type of interface, so a lot of people will upgrade to it. Windows 10, our last ever OS. Oh, here's Windows 11. This will be the last one, promise. Oh, just look away while we plant 12 under your feet. Yeah. Do I have a Kanban board going? Do I have a Kanban board? Does this count? Well, because I'm not working on it with anyone else, doing anything other than just pencil and paper and writing stuff down ends up being more mental load for me. I have tried Trello. I do have an account, and we've tried using boards on there, and it just doesn't end up working for us. So yeah. My problem isn't with the organization of things I need to do. It's more about having the time, executive function, and general processing power to actually do it. Maybe I'm just so practiced using it, have the habit of using it. Yes. Yeah. Quite possibly. I mean, this works for me. At least, working solo, so if I was working in a team, especially if this was a professional thing, I would definitely be more on board with that, and would make myself get used to it. But it's the sort of it's the input method. It's having to remember to go to the site, type something in there, rather than like leave everything that's up on the screen and quickly note something down right here, go back to this, note there, do this, note there. Rather than like having to switch contexts on screen, it just it adds friction points for me. Windows 12 will be both subscription and buy at lifetime. Well, I sincerely hope the buy at lifetime doesn't go anywhere, because that's all that any of us are gonna do. Ba 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 ba. Did I miss anything? Okay. Thank you very much, Joe. What was I gonna say? Nope. My mind has escaped me and my stomach is hurting. Oh god. Well, I can tell you about the latency tool, because I seem to have forgotten. If anyone missed it at the start, I've got the final cases in. I've 3D printed at home these clear or semi-clear lenses, so they basically take the light from the built-in LED that's here and funnel it up quite nicely so that it shows quite clearly on the top, which I'm pretty happy with. And then this is basically the final PCB version, at least for this launch. There's the light sensor circuit here, that's the op amp, the reverse mount photodiode, the gain capacitor and resistor, the smoothing resistor, LED and resistor. This is the audio circuit that I pulled my absolute motherfucking hair out on. Op amp there, and lots of painful circuitry just to make a microphone jack work. And that's the 2-pin input, so if you want to wire something into this to trigger it, you can do that. That's a little NPN transistor, and then 2 resistors, so in theory, no matter what voltage, up to about 50 volts, because that's what that's rated to, you shouldn't be able to blow up the microcontroller, which now has USB-C. Woo! So yeah. So yeah, what was I going to say? I've realised that there are quite a lot of different combinations that you can use because it has the audio jack and the button and the light sensor and the 2-pin input, and then there's lots of different tests that you might want to do with that. There is technically a you might say precedent from the to use it in different ways that I haven't necessarily envisaged. They won't work right now. Because all of the test modes I have to write code for the various test modes, but it shouldn't be that much more difficult to say have it listen for a sound to start triggering the recording, and just keep listening on the microphone to then tell you the time between the triggering sound and the next sound, as it were. That would be something that shouldn't be that difficult for me to implement, but currently won't work. Technically, you could also do the same for the light sensor. I'm not entirely sure what test you would want to have a flash on the light sensor and then time between two flashes. Although, again, it is possible. Hello, John, and goodbye, John. I'll catch you later. Hello, Simon S63 Tech. How you doing? Nothing too much. The most techie thing we have discussed, as Joe says, is Windows 12, which our Australian Simon says will be both subscription and pay for it once for a lifetime, and apparently is going back to a more Windows 10 type interface. Fancy Pants upgrading to USB-C, does that bring any additional benefits as well as better connectivity? So the port itself, not necessarily, but the little board that it's connected to does, mostly because it's actually a whole lot cheaper than the one that I use in the OS RTT Pro, which has the micro USB port. In fact, I can show you what one of those looks like. Currently buried in the my little production trays. So this is the microcontroller that OS RTT uses. So it has a micro USB port and then has a whole load of through-hole pins. I have to solder these pins on and then actually have to crop them down, like shorten these pins so they fit in the headers. The microcontroller that this uses is a SAMD51, which is a more powerful microcontroller than the one that is in this, slightly. It's the same family. This is a SAMD21, that's a SAMD51. You can kind of get the idea. But the main benefit for me is both price, because one of these is about £15, and it's a lot of physical, like manual labor for me to solder all these headers on and then trim them all off, rather than this one, which is a little surface mount package. You can see it's just, I just basically place solder paste down here and down here, plop this on top, heat gun it, and that's it. It's on, it's soldered, it's all connected. It's smaller, so it fits in a nice little package. You know, I mean, size-wise, this is the same size as the full board in terms of height. And this is also about £5 compared to 15, so it's better in a number of ways. It is more limited in some ways. There is only one built-in analog to digital converter, which is a little bit annoying because I do have two inputs that would require analog to digital converting, but you can just pick which one you want it to read from, and that works fine. And also the fact that it has a Type-C connector is a nice, modernity bonus. So yeah. Can use Type-C on OS RTT, get rid of the micro USB controller. So no, basically, Adafruit don't sell that microcontroller. There. With a USB-C header, and I would need to redesign the OS RTT Pro circuit boards to do that, to use that. I might even have to reprogram it, because especially with the response time tool, I had to write quite a lot of very custom code specific to this microcontroller to read to tweak the analog to digital converter inputs in particular. Whereas with this one, I'm basically able to do it easier code-wise, even though it's not as fast or as high bits per reading. How sturdy is the Type-C connector? Plenty. It has basically its full PCB worth of solder holding it to my board. My board is then clamped inside the case, and the connector itself is fully soldered to the little PCB it's on. I've not tried to break it, but I've not exactly been ultra gentle, and it's perfectly fine. It's the same as any other micro USB device. You're not going to break the port off. And also, one of the nice things is the port is quite almost flush. So one, you're not going to have any trouble with cables. You can put any USB-C cable you want in here. And two, it's not protruding or inset too much. So again, there's not much like leverage point there. Break it off. A lot of work to make a relatively minimal change then. Granted, it's much cheaper. Is it worth the amount of extra work to make it work? For OSRTT Pro, no. There are a lot of benefits that this microcontroller provides me. Namely, the analog to digital converter. There's not only two on board of here, which I actually don't need. I only need one of them. But the fact that the analog to digital converter in here can do 1 mega sample per second, or million samples per second. The one in here can only do 350,000 samples per second. Now, to be clear, I'm not capturing at 1 million or 350,000. I'm doing essentially averaging, so it takes multiple samples. So this one takes 16 samples, I think. And then averages 16 12-bit samples, so up to 2048. Am I doing the maths right? 2 to the power of 12, 4096. So up to 4096, but then it averages those all out, and on this board that gives me a 16-bit integer, which means it goes up to 65,520, and it's technically meant to be 65,536, but the reference voltage is ever so slightly lower in the top, so anyway, around 65,500 instead of 4,096. That's really useful because it gives a lot of granularity in each of the steps, and for the response times, what you care about is each of those individual light levels. You care about that granularity, whereas with the latency tool, you really don't care about how much light you're getting. You only care about, has the light gone up since we've started checking? Has it risen a significant enough amount for us to go, yes, something has happened there. So this doesn't have any of the fancy adjustment that the latency, the response time tool does, and I do still do averaging on this. I do, it's either 4 or 8 samples. But so the effective sampling rate is actually very similar. If not slightly faster on that one, I think, actually. But I only get a 14-bit integer, so up to 16,000 instead of 65,000. So basically, there's a lot less granularity in the data that this gives you, but that really doesn't matter for what it's designed for. I couldn't use that microcontroller on the Pro without some serious changes to its accuracy or granularity. Basically. God, that was a long-winded way to say, no, I can't do that. Oh, dear. It's a shame they don't use the same chip, the USB-C connector, for future-proofing. The micro connector being slowly phased out over the time, but I guess for how much it's used, it's not too troublesome. Yeah, for the time being, it's fine. And also, when I sell the kits, I sell it with a 5 meter micro USB cable included. I picked 5 meters because a lot of the time you're testing something and the system might be down on the floor, it might be somewhere else. You might have multiple monitors, so you want to be able to stretch it somewhere else. I've realized it's too long. I should have gone with 3 meters, but so I'm doing 3 meters with the latency tool. But you know, I include the cable with it. It's fine. It's not gonna wear out in the few hundred times people are gonna use these. Over the course of their ownership of it, really. So it's not too big a deal. Nice on the flush fit. So many things don't allow super chunky molded cables. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, one of the reasons why I ended up doing this kind of cutout in the OSRTT Pro case is that there is a little bit of a lip you can see, which it's mostly fine, but I gave a little bit more clearance, and I was like, well, if I'm going to clearance basically all the way to the top, I may as well just bring this back so that most of the port is exposed and it's a bit easier. So yeah, there's quite a lot of room around that one as well. This is one of the cases that I printed myself, so it's a bit sort of cracked and droops on one end. This is one of the earliest units. Better to have too much than not enough, unless you're a thermaltake RGB fan. The cables on those were ridiculously unnecessarily long. Yeah, the thing, like, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing a comparison between air cooling and water cooling, or closed loop liquid cooling rather. And one of the funny things is that the AIO that I'm using is a Asus Ryu 3 240mm ARGB. So it's not even like Corsair where it has an actual LCD. It has like RGB LEDs in a sort of pixel array on the top of the pump, so it can sort of act as a screen. It's actually the same name that they use on the back of their Zephyrus 14 and 15 laptops. The Anime Matrix, which I just hate. But the thing is, so first of all, it's a stupid solution because with Corsair's new pump that has a screen on it, whichever way you orient the pump, the screen will automatically rotate for you, which is great. This one doesn't. And if you mount it wrong, which is the correct way for every other AIO on the planet, and I would argue a sensible way to have the tubes on the side, the screen is 90 degrees wrong, and you cannot change that in the software. So, like, if you want to have your CPU temperature shown on the like little pump screen RGB LEDs, which you can do, it will be the wrong way round unless you remount the cooler. And also, you have the USB header coming from it, you have the fan header to power it, you have RGB headers from the fans, you have obviously the fan headers. It's just such a mess. And I know that some of the manufacturers are thinking about how to do different like RGB connectors and fan power connectors and stuff, and that would be great. But also, I just hate it so much. I think if it was a really clean solution, if there were no visible wires, it all just nicely kind of interconnected with some pogo pins and stuff and just kind of worked, I wouldn't be so mad about it. It'd be fine. It'd still be a bit ostentatious, and I kind of like when I swapped to the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4, which is just an all black, no RGB, no lighting at all CPU cooler. I did kind of like that aesthetic. But yeah, those cables and those fans drive me mad. Oh. That would drive me insane. It would be enough to let my OCD convince me to lose it altogether for that reason alone. I know, right? The thing is that, like, the reason why you put the connector, like the tubing on the side, is so that the pump doesn't become a local high point for air bubbles. Because, like, if the pump is the way that ASUS want you to mount it, both connectors are on the bottom, and so the pump, even though it's not the highest point of the system, it is a local high point, and so, you know, air bubbles will just stick in the top of the pump and will never exit, whereas if it's on its side, there's a lot better chance that they're going to flow out of that pipe on the side at the top. Or even when it's off, actually, it can then just slowly make its way back up, even if in is the top one and out is the bottom one, right? Doesn't matter that much. Whereas if it's the way that ASUS want you to mount it, it just gets stuck in there. Is it recommended to reinstall Windows after upgrading a CPU on the same motherboard? I've been using the new CPU for 2 weeks and no issues. Still wonder what best practices. Generally speaking, no. I maybe once upon a time, but these days I generally don't reinstall Windows unless I'm having irreplaceable issues. You can't, like, if you're switching between like Intel and AMD, sometimes that might be a necessity, because especially with like AMD's drivers, they're quite easy to remove, which I've actually done. In fact, I have swapped from AMD to Intel on this current Windows build and I've had no problems. But sometimes there can be some extra sticky drivers and tweaks and things that you might not necessarily know where to remove. But yeah, in those sorts of situations, it's probably worth replacing, like reinstalling Windows. If you're just upgrading your CPU, it's fine. You might need to relicense your Windows copy, reactivate it, but as I had to do, although that's because I switched motherboards and CPU and GPU actually. So I ship of Theseused it. Seems a bit of a flawed system set up from the start, then, by the sounds of it. The failure rate must be higher, setting up the way that would allow an air gap at the top. Yeah, like in the current configuration, as long as you mount the radiator in the, you know, above it, it's probably fine, and it's probably the sort of thing that won't cause an issue until after the 1 year warranty has expired. So yeah, seems a bit insidious to me. Thanks, Dancer. Glad to know upgraded from the 3700X 4 years to a 5950X. I'm ridiculously happy with it so far. Nice. The chat has been surprisingly quiet tonight. Usual folks are absent. They are. John popped in for a single message about 10 minutes ago. And yeah. On the health front, I have a musculoskeletal clinic appointment next week, which I'm hoping can help me with my crooked and destroyed back. That'd be nice, because I don't think I've had a day without back pain in 5, 10 years? Something like that? That'd be nice. Zig's still here, lurking in the background. Good. Will the issue the exoskeleton finally like Elysium? Well, I hope not exactly like Elysium, because that's a dystopian fiction for a reason. I don't know if I'd actually want an exoskeleton, just because the my back is already destroyed. I don't need a robot with a bug in the code to snap me in half. to more like the lifter in Aliens. I don't know how to get that one through the door. Give me Sister Lumbar. I assume that's punctures rather than punches. Because I can't imagine just punching her back is helping her much. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at her pain. Your comment is just great. But yes, I feel for her pain. Get an internal one, Wolverine, and that'd be fun. I mean, the Wolverine one is, first of all, I'd need the mutation to heal myself, in which case I wouldn't really need the exoskeleton. And then, secondly, the, exoskeleton would be nice, but it might also be a problem. Space Marine power armor, not TSA approved for travel. Well, it's power armor, it probably has a jetpack, it's fine. I've been lurking in the background, sat with my back at a 45-degree angle. Nice. I did put punctures, but for some reason it changed to punches. Oh dear. Android apparently thinks that punches are more appropriate for lumbar procedures. A little question, what's a good price for 6700 XT? At what point would I be getting scalped? Good question. It's been a while since I've looked at 6700 XT pricing. Let me see what some like overclockers reckons, and then I can tell you if it seems reasonable. I know that a lot of the reviewers have talked quite a lot about 6700 XTs as very good value. So it looks like Clockers is selling them for 350, 360 pounds. I obviously don't exactly know where you are, so depends, but I think it is a little bit cheaper in the States if that's where you are. Simon says 320 USD. That sounds about right as well. So between 300 and 350 of your currency of choice, generally, assuming that currency is US dollars, GBP, or euros. Yeah. Bungee jump might fix you. Well, I've tried skydiving, that didn't help, so... I wouldn't be opposed to bungee jumping, though. I just need to find a nice place to do it. I guess it kind of work. Some big Mike Tyson dude to punch your spine straight. It's better than acupuncture. That's a very interesting type of homeopathic remedy. I got mine for £385 a year ago. Nice, fair. I don't know what the used price is, like eBay price. I assume probably 300-ish. There's a power color one sold by eBuyer on eBay for 333. There's a C grade one for 280, 265, 300, 270, 280. That sort of price point. Yeah. No worries, man. Glad to help. Alright, well, that is our usual hour, so I'm gonna go take some throat medication and leave it there. I hope you all have a wonderful week, as always. And as always, if you are new here, these are every Thursday night at 8 PM UK time, so if you want to pop back next week, feel free. And yeah, that's kind of that, really. I hope you all stay safe, have a good week, check out the video tomorrow, but especially the one on Monday, because that's this thing. Please leave a comment, even if you're not going to buy one, because, helps the, was gonna say decimation. I can't remember the word, but yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.